Carl Jung uncovered something about the human psyche that many people fail to grasp, yet it could potentially save your life. Jung explained that when a narcissist recognizes they can no longer control you, they don't simply leave. Instead, what follows is far more insidious than most could anticipate. However, before revealing this final, destructive tactic Jung warned about, it's essential to understand a critical aspect of the narcissistic mind that even experienced therapists frequently overlook. Jung's early insights remind us that understanding manipulation begins with understanding the mind itself. Comment 1. If you've ever realized someone was manipulating you only after the damage was done. Comment 2. If you've learned to recognize those patterns before they took hold. Carl Jung stated that every individual possesses what he termed the shadow, the hidden, suppressed aspects of the personality we avoid acknowledging. His pioneering research revealed that narcissists have a uniquely hazardous connection with their shadow selves. Jung's findings about narcissistic behavior fundamentally alter the way we understand manipulation. What is truly alarming is that most individuals do not recognize they are interacting with a narcissist until it's already too late. Jung explained that narcissists project their shadow onto others, perceiving their own inner darkness in those around them. Yet, when they meet someone capable of seeing through their facade, someone too dangerous to manipulate, a profound shift occurs in their psychological state. This is where Jung's most unsettling observation becomes relevant. Pay close attention, because what follows may shield you from severe psychological harm. Carl Jung explained that every person wears what he called a persona, the mask we show to the world. For most, this is merely a social adaptation. However, Jung discovered that for narcissists, the persona is not just a mask, but their complete identity. What Jung found next stunned the psychological community. When a narcissist's persona is threatened by someone who perceives their true self, they don't merely defend it. They launch a psychological war. Jung observed that narcissists possess what he called an inflated ego, a mental state in which they view themselves as superior to others. This inflation operates as a defense mechanism against their profound feelings of inadequacy and shame. Carl Jung revealed something about narcissistic rage that is largely unknown. Yet understanding it can mean the difference between freedom and psychological captivity. By becoming too difficult to manipulate, you are effectively threatening the narcissist's entire psychological framework. Jung described this as a psychological crisis that activates their most primal defense mechanisms. Jung discovered that narcissists progress through 3 distinct stages when faced with someone they can no longer control. Stage 1 is the testing phase. According to his observations, narcissists initially probe your psychological boundaries, searching for what he termed psychological weak points, areas where manipulation can be inserted. Jung made an observation that is chilling. If you successfully resist their first manipulation attempts, you have marked yourself as a threat. He explained that during this phase, narcissists engage in what he called psychological reconnaissance, meticulously studying your reactions, triggers, and defense systems. Jung's findings about their next move are startling. Stage 2 is the escalation phase. Jung stated that when narcissists realize their usual tactics fail, they enter what he called compensatory behavior, overcompensating for their loss of control by escalating the aggression of their manipulative actions. Jung's research indicates that this is the point where narcissists start using what he termed psychological warfare. Techniques like gaslighting, projection, and intensified emotional manipulation are deployed. But Jung made a disturbing discovery about this phase. It serves as a test to determine whether you'll collapse under pressure. If you don't, Jung noted that narcissists frequently enlist flying monkeys, individuals who unwittingly help execute their manipulation strategy. These tactics can feel overwhelming and disorienting once you recognize them. Comment 1 if you've ever felt trapped in someone's manipulative cycle. Comment 2 if you've managed to walk away before it reached that point. Jung identified this as a highly sophisticated and particularly insidious psychological tactic. What unfolds in the third stage, which he named the recognition phase, is, according to Jung, capable of psychologically shattering even the strongest individuals. This is where one of Jung's most critical insights emerges. Carl Jung explained that when a narcissist finally recognizes that you are entirely immune to their manipulation, they undergo what he termed narcissistic mortification, a profound psychological injury that deeply undermines their entire identity. At this point, narcissists employ the final and most destructive tactic Jung warned about. When direct control fails, Jung found they resort to a strategy called psychological inversion, a method where they attempt to destabilize your grasp on reality and make you doubt your own sanity. Jung's research showed that this last tactic includes the narcissist casting themselves as the victim while portraying you as the aggressor. He described this as shadow projection on steroids. What makes it especially dangerous is its underlying psychological mechanics. Jung explained that this inversion technique manipulates the collective unconscious, shared mental patterns present in all humans. Narcissists exploit society's instinctive inclination to sympathize with those who appear to be victims. Jung made a shocking statement about narcissistic inversion. It's more than mere manipulation. It constitutes a form of psychological terrorism, deliberately aimed at cutting you off from your sources of support. Carl Jung stated that when narcissists lose control over you, they resort to a smear campaign to dominate the narrative. He observed their remarkable talent for manipulating group psychology. Jung discovered that narcissists possess an intuitive grasp of archetypal patterns, universal themes that connect with people's unconscious minds. They use this understanding to cast themselves as the classic victim and portray you as the archetypal villain. Jung's findings revealed a disturbing truth that most people recognize only after significant damage. He found that narcissists typically launch smear campaigns by expressing what seem like sincere concerns about your behavior, appearing as worried, confused, or emotionally wounded by your actions. However, Jung discovered that this display of vulnerability is strategic. It is a deliberate move to gain supporters for their manipulative campaign. Jung observed that narcissists are highly skilled at spotting individuals who are vulnerable to manipulation. They typically target empathetic people who instinctively want to help those who appear to be suffering. According to Jung, the final objective of the narcissist's manipulation is to isolate you. His research showed that narcissists understand our fundamental human need for connection and external validation. Jung's findings about their isolation method are deeply unsettling. He explained that narcissists deliberately and methodically sever your relationships by undermining them one at a time. They instill suspicion about your character in the minds of those close to you, friends, family, and co-workers. Jung discovered that narcissists use a particular psychological tactic that lends credibility to their falsehoods. Jung identified this method as truth sandwiching, a strategy where lies are placed between truths, which makes the entire story appear trustworthy. He observed that this technique exploits the brain's natural tendency to accept information when it is accompanied by known truths. As a result, the conscious mind finds it difficult to distinguish fact from fiction. Carl Jung found that when narcissists lose the ability to manipulate you directly, they begin projecting their shadow traits onto you with remarkable intensity. His analysis showed that this serves multiple functions. It helps the narcissist disassociate from their own flaws, while simultaneously launching an assault on your character. Jung made a statement about this projection that clarifies everything. Narcissists unconsciously attribute their own motives, actions, and psychological tendencies to you. If they are manipulative, they'll accuse you of being manipulative. If they are abusive, they'll allege that you are the abuser. Jung also discovered the reason this projection works so well. It takes advantage of a principle he termed confirmation bias amplification. His research found that when people hear accusations that include traces of psychological truth, even if unrelated to you, their minds naturally start looking for evidence to validate the claims. Jung stated that the narcissist's ultimate manipulation involves a full reversal of reality. His observations revealed that narcissists methodically reconstruct the story of your relationship to present themselves as the victim. What makes this method especially destructive, Jung explained, is something few expect. Narcissists possess an innate sense of what he termed psychological timing. They know precisely when to unleash this inversion strategy to achieve the greatest effect. Jung found that narcissists deliberately time their final assaults for moments when you're most emotionally fragile. His research indicated that these tactics are often launched during periods of stress, grief, or significant life transitions. They exploit your emotional fragility to make their fabricated narrative appear more credible. Jung noted that during such times, your psychological defenses are compromised, increasing your susceptibility to doubt and confusion. Jung discovered that as narcissists implement their final manipulation tactic, they intensify their gaslighting efforts to extreme degrees. According to Jung's findings, this behavior goes beyond ordinary gaslighting. It constitutes a deliberate and organized psychological attack. Jung's insights into this intensified form of gaslighting help clarify the confusing experiences victims endure. He explained that narcissists do not only challenge a person's perceptions, but also undermine their very ability to think rationally. They imply that you are unstable, unreliable, or mentally unfit. Jung emphasized that this method's deeper aim is not merely to make someone question individual incidents, but to destabilize their whole perception of reality, a process he termed psychological reality erosion. The idea of reality erosion shows just how dangerous psychological control can be. Comment 1 if you've ever questioned your own reality because of someone's manipulation. Comment 2 if you've helped someone else see through a manipulator's lies. Jung noted that narcissists deliberately erode trust in your own memory, judgment, and perception. Their goal is to create such intense self-doubt that you completely lose faith in yourself. Jung also identified that narcissists exploit what contemporary psychology calls social proof, the human inclination to rely on others for behavioral and cognitive cues. When direct manipulation fails, narcissists turn to influencing those around you, fabricating false social proof that upholds their version of events. Jung made a striking observation about this tactic. Narcissists deliberately prey on those who are highly empathetic and inclined to see the good in others. They weaponize these individuals' compassion, using it as a tool of control. Jung explained that this manipulation works so well because it taps into what he termed helper psychology. People who are predisposed to assist others are often unable to detect manipulation, as their empathy tends to overshadow their critical reasoning. Jung observed that narcissists intuitively recognize helper personalities and position themselves as people requiring care and understanding. He noted that when narcissists reach their ultimate manipulation phase, they initiate what he described as systematic character destruction. This extends far beyond mere gossip or criticism. Jung's findings about these character assassination strategies explain why such attacks feel particularly devastating. Jung discovered that narcissists go beyond criticizing your behavior. They assault your core traits and intentions. They frame your positive attributes as hidden flaws. His research revealed that this deliberate reframing is especially harmful. Independence becomes selfishness, confidence becomes arrogance, and boundary setting becomes controlling. Jung explained that this tactic works so well because it incorporates a sliver of truth. Any positive quality can be distorted into a vice when exaggerated. Jung identified that the last stage of narcissistic manipulation involves what he termed emotional terrorism, a deliberate effort to inflict psychological pain in order to shatter your spirit. He clarified that this is not mere cruelty, but a systematic form of psychological warfare intended to enforce submission. Jung also observed that narcissists focus on your deepest insecurities and vulnerabilities, weaponizing the personal information they've accumulated during the relationship. Jung explained that the ultimate purpose of emotional terrorism is not simply to inflict pain, but to dismantle your psychological defenses to such an extent that you will do anything, including embracing their distorted reality, to end the suffering. He noted that narcissists are acutely aware of human breaking points and methodically apply pressure until they locate yours. Jung identified multiple psychological principles behind the effectiveness of the narcissist's final tactic. Chief among them is cognitive overload, the brain's tendency to shut down under excessive conflicting information. He found that facing simultaneous false accusations, social isolation, gaslighting, and emotional terrorism overwhelms your mental capacity, leaving you unable to process the attacks effectively. Jung noted that cognitive overload also clarifies why even intelligent and strong individuals succumb to narcissistic manipulation. Contrary to expectations, intelligence does not shield against it. In fact, highly intelligent people may be more vulnerable because they attempt to rationally analyze irrational behavior. He explained that narcissistic tactics bypass logical reasoning, striking instead at what he described as primitive psychological responses. Jung stated that in their ultimate manipulation phase, narcissists heighten what contemporary psychology identifies as trauma bonding, the emotional connection that develops between an abuser and their victim. According to his observations, this escalation has a clear purpose. It increases the victim's likelihood of returning to the narcissist to escape the pain. Jung discovered that the cycle of intense emotional suffering, interspersed with brief moments of comfort, produces an addiction-like response within the brain. Jung further explained that trauma bonding is so difficult to escape because it manipulates the nervous system's instinctive reactions to danger and safety. The brain begins to perceive the narcissist as both the threat and the source of comfort. This conditioning establishes a psychological dependence that endures even when you consciously recognize the toxicity of the relationship. Jung discovered that narcissists employ a technique he termed false urgency as part of their final manipulative strategy. They intentionally generate fabricated crises that require instant reactions, disrupting your ability to think rationally. Jung observed that this deliberate creation of chaos and confusion keeps you trapped in a reactive mindset instead of allowing calm and strategic thinking. Jung explained that this perpetual chaos serves a calculated purpose. By forcing you to respond to continual false emergencies, narcissists prevent you from identifying manipulation patterns or devising effective coping mechanisms. He described this state as survival mode, a psychological condition where your attention fixates on immediate dangers rather than long-term clarity and recovery. Jung outlined several warning indicators to recognize when a narcissist is implementing their ultimate manipulative strategy. The first, he noted, is a rapid increase in both the intensity and frequency of their attacks, a phenomenon he labeled manipulation acceleration. He also identified subtler warning signs that often go unnoticed, such as narcissists involving outsiders more extensively, thereby transforming your social relationships into arenas for their psychological conflict. Jung observed that as their manipulation intensifies, narcissists display escalating desperation and erratic behavior. They may resort to threats, ultimatums, or seemingly irrational actions. Jung interpreted this as control panic, the deep fear that arises when narcissists sense their dominance slipping away. This panic exposes their underlying instability and dependence on maintaining control. Jung formulated several methods to safeguard oneself against the narcissist's final stage of manipulation. The most effective, according to his research, is psychological detachment, the capacity to witness manipulation without emotional entanglement. However, his most profound insight centers on the concept of the observer self, the conscious aspect of the mind that can monitor one's own thoughts and emotions without succumbing to them. Jung emphasized that cultivating the observer self is vital for preserving mental stability. When you can recognize narcissistic behavior as a psychological process instead of a personal offense, its influence over your emotions weakens significantly. He clarified that detachment does not imply emotional numbness, but rather the inner resilience to stay balanced amidst psychological aggression. Jung highlighted the necessity of reality anchoring as a defense against narcissistic distortion. He advised maintaining meticulous records of events and communications. This documentation, he explained, is essential because narcissists frequently twist or deny factual history. Keeping objective evidence preserves your grasp on reality amid their deception. Jung's research revealed another reason documentation is critical. Continuous manipulation can impair memory itself, a phenomenon he named manufactured amnesia. When you are repeatedly made to question your perceptions and recollections, your brain starts doubting its own ability to accurately record experiences. Jung stated that recovery from narcissistic manipulation demands a process he termed shadow integration, the act of recognizing and accepting the painful or dark experiences one has gone through without allowing them to dictate personal identity. In Jung's therapeutic framework, true healing means reclaiming your authentic self, the version of you that existed before the manipulation took hold. Jung's most profound revelation about recovery offers a sense of hope. He found that overcoming narcissistic manipulation frequently results in psychological individuation, a process of achieving a richer self-awareness and a deeper comprehension of one's own mental and emotional patterns. Jung noted that this transformative process turns survivors into empowered individuals. Those who successfully recover from narcissistic abuse tend to develop heightened intuition, firmer boundaries, and an improved ability to detect psychological manipulation in others. Jung explained that this elevated level of self-awareness functions as a safeguard against future attempts at manipulation and frequently results in a more genuine and satisfying life experience. Jung's final and most profound insight into narcissistic manipulation is elegantly simple. The narcissist's influence depends wholly on your psychological involvement in their distorted version of reality. According to Jung's concluding analysis, once you withdraw from engaging in their psychological games, the manipulation immediately loses its power. Jung's most freeing discovery about narcissistic manipulation is that narcissists are, in truth, far more psychologically fragile than they project. Their complex manipulative behaviors are not signs of strength, but rather desperate efforts to uphold their inflated and unstable egos. Jung offered an insight that permanently alters one's perception of narcissists. They are not dominant predators, but frightened children trapped in adult forms, deeply afraid of their internal psychological void. Jung asserted that realizing this truth is the path to psychological liberation. When you recognize narcissistic manipulation as the desperate behavior of an emotionally damaged person, it loses its ability to dictate your emotions or dominate your life. Jung's teachings serve as a reminder that individuals inherently possess the power to reclaim their psychological autonomy. The narcissist's final manipulative effort is merely a frantic attempt to stop you from realizing your inner strength. Now that you understand this reality, Jung emphasized that truth itself serves as the most potent weapon against psychological manipulation. As Jung observed, when a narcissist perceives you as too self-aware or resilient to manipulate, it signifies that you've already triumphed. Their final manipulative outbursts are not signs of your failure, but confirmation of your psychological victory. You are more powerful than their manipulation, wiser than their deceit, and fully capable of reclaiming the genuine, fulfilling life that Jung believed was your innate right. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey. If today's discussion offered you insight or value, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing the video with someone who might need it. Jung's final message is one of hope and strength, the power to see clearly and reclaim your own mind. Comment 1 if this insight helped you better understand narcissistic behavior. Comment 2 if you're ready to use this knowledge to protect your peace and independence.